Today I'm going over my Brave P.U.N.K deck. Little interesting fact, I was going to run this at the European Championship. However, they ended up announcing that it's at the end of August post Power of the Elements. So then I'm like, well, I might as well spoil everything. I do honestly believe this is one of the best possible ways to build it, and it's very controversial because of certain choices I made. Also, really quick, be sure to go to zerodamagegaming.com and use the code Solemn for a discount on this beautiful Sprite playmat. Isn't that beautiful? Go pick it up right now. We start with, of course, the Brave package. So we got our 3 Water Enchantress, 3 Ride of Eremacir. We got 2 Fateful Adventure because we are running the Magician Souls package. And so if you get rid of one, you really want the other, especially because this deck doesn't have like the greatest grind. Like once you've gone through your P.U.N.K names, you start losing a lot because you basically use up like one of your engines. So then really having the second Fateful Adventure can be very, very useful. We then also run 1 Draco back for obvious reasons. And then we run Wandering Griffin, but also Illegal Knight. So this is a bit of a weird one. I know a lot of people are not playing Illegal Knight, but to me this card is actually crucial. The reason is when your hand isn't great and you are relying on Chaos Ruler mills to get your ride package going, if you then mill your Wandering Griffin Rider, you do not reach the best end board. And so being able to then still have another level 7 you can search is really, really good. Beyond that, you also really like to use this going second, which I think is really important. And we also really want to have darks in the deck. As you know, if you don't have a dark, you can't revive Chaos Ruler. And I am not running the Sangan package, so if I'm missing a dark, I can always basically search it off the Fateful. What's also really nice when going second is if you draw the Illegal or the Wandering, being able to search the other with the Fateful and then having like 2 forms of interaction is really, really sick as well. That's also another thing. If you draw Illegal or Wandering Griffin and your opponent hand traps you, so you have to send back your Griffin to negate that, then you can no longer make Baron with Red Rose. That's actually a really important thing. If you want to hand trap this deck and you see, oh damn, they have Griffin, now I can't hand trap, don't care. Literally hand trap them when they have like Griffin and the Hulk is about to search Red Rose, and then you can literally stop Baron from coming out. So sure, they'll still sidelock you, but I hope you have something for that. But at least like the whole board starts sucking. Also, if your opponent is playing the Mare combo, like a Christian Urena, where he goes like Baron, Yazi, and then Mare and has like the craziest board ever, if you just hand trap that shit, but like once Hulk activates, Griffin is gone, the entire combo falls apart. So that's another reason why having the Illegal Knight is very nice, because this way you have like at least slightly better odds of having hard drawn one of the 2, and then if, you know, the hand trap happens, you can then still special summon out a second, still make your Baron, and still have full combo essentially. So for that reason, I really like the Illegal Knight, even though a lot of people are not running it right now. And then of course we also have the Foolish Burial. This deck also can use it in other ways than just Brave, so it's not actually dead. And worst case, you can also discard it for your Magician Soul. Then for P.U.N.Ks, I got 3 Foxy Tune, 3 Teleport, 2 Xiamin, 1 Deer Note, and 1 Ogre Dance. Again, the Ogre Dance is very important because if you open Foxy, now at least Foxy is a 1-card Hulk or a 1-card Cherubini or something like that. Whereas if you were just playing the engine without Ogre Dance, that would no longer be the case. Also, it's a dark, so if you already opened Teleport Foxy, now your Xiamin just searches Ogre Dance, and now you have the dark setup for Chaos Ruler as well. Now for a lesser known engine, we got 3 Carboneden and 1 Galaxy Serpent. So this engine essentially does the exact same thing as the Sangan engine, where you go normal summon Sangan, turn it into Almirage, search Arborea, special summon Arborea to the Almirage arrow, and now that makes a Hulk, so it's a 1-card Hulk. This one is the same thing. You normal summon Carboneden, turn it into Almirage, banish it from graveyard, special summon out Galaxy Serpent plus Almirage is Hulk, is full combo. The reason I'm running this over Sangan is a few reasons actually. First of all, if you mill your Carboneden of Chaos Ruler, it's an extender, whereas if you mill Sangan of Chaos Ruler, nothing happens. Also, if you open this in your hand and you have other combos already going, you can also just discard this for Fateful, so you can save your Draco back for Mystic Mine, or you can discard this for Foxy Tune, and again, you have 1 more extender in grave just like that. So for that reason, like if you open Sangan plus hand, sure, the Sangan can search a hand trap and it's really cool and all, but you might not necessarily be able to play true stuff, whereas if you open Carboneden plus a hand, then you can actually play true stuff more easily. Also, a really funny thing is that this is a normal monster, so you can actually equip a Draco back to it. So if you're going second and your opponent kills your token, if let's let's say it's Sword Soul and they like activate Blackout to get rid of the token, then you can still Carboneden into this thing, equip Draco back and bounce something. The only thing you have to watch out for is that this is not a dark, but there's other cards in the deck that already fix that issue. Next, we got 2 Magician Souls, 2 Illusion of Chaos. This engine is absolutely insane. This is literally Pot of Greed in the Brave engine. It's also really good with Herald. That's why we play the second one. So normally you could play something like this, but if you already used one and then you have an Herald of the Arclight that dies, being able to just look for this gives you some follow-up is really, really nice because again, this deck doesn't have the greatest follow-up. Next, we have the Red Rose package. Very, very standard. We see that all the time. Makes all your combos work. Got 1 Fairy Tail Snow. It's part of some combos, but not all of them, but it's still really nice to back up your board with a free Book of Moon. And it's also a spellcaster, so it's really easy to make Selene to then make access code when you OTK. Next, 1 Effect Veiler. So this is just for the Selene access code line. Yes, it is a hand trap, so you can use it as a hand trap, but if it's not being used as a hand trap, then you just use it from your deck to make Selene access code. Then 1 Jet Synchron. This is just for your artifact side lines. Also part of your Selene lines, actually, if you already used Effect Veiler as a hand trap, because you can Jet Synchron into Anima and then revive the Veiler, let's say. Worst case, you can still also just turn this into Anima, then you still can Selene, just not being able to revive anything, and then this revives itself, and that's still access code. But it's a 1 card discard then. Then we have the 1 Artifact Side, which is, you know, just side locking your opponent. We have 1 Called by the Grave, because it's a Broken God card. Again, like, you can call Yu-Gi-Oh! Skill-based all you want, but when cards like this exist, the RNG kind of ruins a lot of games. Now, finally, here is where the deck becomes very, very spicy. Like Carboneden, not very known, but it's still, you know, it's still something other people have been doing. But this is something I have not really seen at all yet, and that is my defensive cards. My defensive cards are only 3 Forbidden Droplets and then 3 of the Dark Kaiju. This Kaiju is insane. So first, I'm gonna have the hottest take of them all. I think hand traps fucking suck ass. And the reason is, you really, this format, need to open 2 or you're not playing the game. Like, straight up, your opponent is playing the P.U.N.K sidelock type of deck that we're showing right here. If you don't open 2 hand traps, and they better be impactful ones, you're straight up not playing. So you need to play a deck that always draws 2. And always drawing 2 is so, like, annoying because you're also making your deck brickier when you go first. The whole format just becomes like a whole sackfest. Now, of course, with the Brave engine and so forth, hand traps are still pretty solid. You can still make Hulk and so forth. But still, like, every single iteration of this deck I've played is either bricking too much or not drawing hand traps often enough. This is not like Sword Soul, where your engine is so lean that you can afford all these hand traps and still be playing like 40 or 42. This deck really goes to 50 cards and so forth once you start playing the critical mass of hand traps you need, but you become much less consistent in the process. So for that reason, rather than having to draw 2 hand traps, I just really wanted to draw 1 broken defensive card. And these are the broken defensive cards. Now, you might ask yourself, why not just Dark Ruler no more? And essentially, this deck's board it generates after breaking your opponent's board, after Dark Ruler no moreing them, is really, really shit. Beyond that, Dark Ruler no more is also dead going first, whereas this going first is still a dark that you can use for your Chaos Ruler. That's also why this is not a Godarla, by the way. Like, if you weren't afraid of not having the darks for Chaos Ruler, you would literally just play Godarla because it's better into Flu, but this is better into everything else purely because you have the dark attribute. So straight up, if your opponent is playing a Brave P.U.N.K deck and they're doing the side lock in the main phase, you can literally just go player priority, tribute to Hal, here's a Kaiju. And that whole board they just made just sucks dicks. Now, if they're doing the play where they Baron in standby phase into the side, then you droplets them. And if they Baron standby phase into side with Herald, then you auto lose, but you would have auto lost regardless. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! So I figured if my opponent opens the nuts, nothing's gonna stop that anyway. That is just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is right now. And if they open anything but the nuts, one of these is enough to actually play the game. And if I can play the game, this is the best deck anyway. So for that reason, these are absolutely incredible. Now, of course, in the side, I am playing playing hand traps, mostly like high impact ones, because certain matchups can be auto one of a hand trap, but in a game one, that's not necessarily the case. So yeah, only these defensive cards also makes it that the deck gets very, very close to 40. I think we're at 44 cards or so in this list, which is very low for a Brave Punk deck. Like, try making a Brave Punk deck where you have like 10 or 12 hand traps in a 40 card deck. It's just not happening. And also, by keeping the deck so close to 40, it's much easier to draw your droplets, which in the end is like the only really good going second card. Like, we can all be coping about you can use this or that. In the end, if you're not drawing droplets in Yu-Gi-Oh, you're probably not playing. So for that reason, I'd much rather have a higher odds of drawing droplets rather than drawing 2 hand traps. Though again, drawing 2 hand traps is still really nice, but the deck just bricks too much, which is not the case for a deck like Sword Soul, for example. Another really funny thing is that you can actually use this also against some of the tower building decks. So against Dragon Link, if they have the big Boral thing, you just tribute it, GG. If Marincess has their big tower thing, you tribute it, GG. If your opponent is Adignister, you tribute it, GG. If Sword Soul ends on Baron, Shishao Blackout, you can literally just tribute to Shishao, and now suddenly they don't have a Blackout anymore either, and then you just have to play through 1 negate, so that's also GG. If your opponent has a big long one, Blackout Shishao, you tribute a big long one, and then 1 Brave token basically outs the whole board as well. So this card, even though it's just a single kaiju, is still really impactful. And because we're playing the Brave engine, you can also use it multiple times. Like, you can tribute something from your opponent, here's a kaiju, Draco back it back to your hand, tribute something else from the opponent, here's your kaiju back. Also, even if you draw 2, it's not bad, because you just, tribute something from your opponent, summon the other one, it's a level 7, which is great to go make a Baron and so forth. You can also pair this with Illegal Knight, like you can tribute something from your opponent, Illegal Knight bounces it back, do it again. Similar story to the Draco back, basically. The only deck against which this sucks is Drytron. Like, if they have the Vanities, you obviously, like, you're siding this out for Droll instead. So then, for the extra, we have Shooting Riser to dump Fairy Tail Snow, we have Chaos Ruler because it, gets every combo going, Herald, so that opponents can't actually forbidden droplets through the combo, Baron because it's Baron, Hulk because it creates every combo, Dagda in order to set aside, Psychic End Punisher, super, like, overrated and underrated at the same time. Some people call this the most broken card ever, and that's not true, but other people are like saying, oh, it doesn't come up, and that's not true either. So I really like the card, but it's really tough to value it. In certain games, it's gonna be the most dead card ever, and in other games, it completely carries by itself. Then we have 1 Amazing Dragon, really solid going second, and also there's a certain line that I'm sure some people will be showing off after the NA weekend, basically, where by running Amazing Dragon, you can literally full combo of just 1 card, even when you didn't open well. But if you want to see a combo video, let me know about that. Then we have Almirage for the Carboneden. We have Anima for turning Jet Synchron into a spellcaster. We have Dark, because going second, this is really insane. I am considering also the Light Charmer, but it's really hard to find room for it. Then we have 1 Celine, which is for going second with Access Code. We have Access Code itself. We have TG Wonder Magician, because sidelock stuff. And then we have Cherubini. Cherubini, really, really solid as well. You especially use this when you, first of all, in the line where 1 card fixes everything with Amazing Dragon, but also if you open Carboneden plus E-Telly, this gives you Brave token, which is full combo essentially. Now the side I wasn't entirely done with yet, but I didn't bother actually completely finishing it because obviously the European Championship was completely postponed. So we have our 3 Ash. This is mostly against Despia, like Branded Despia. I think Branded Despia is very underrated right now. Like, obviously, at first in the beginning of the format, everyone was saying, oh, this deck is crazy, and everyone started playing a billion things against it. Like, people were playing Foolish Return, people were playing Dimensional Barrier, Anti-Spell, and people were playing so much hate for it, essentially, that it became unplayable because of that, like, post-side. However, now that people are all afraid of the punks, this deck, it is entirely possible that people underside for Despia, and then I think Despia actually becomes really, really crazy again. So for that reason, I am running it now. Being able to do this on a branded fusion is still often game. Then we have 3 Anti-Spell. Of course, if you're going first after the game 1, you are probably taking out the Kaiju and or the droplets. You basically have to look at the matchup, but you really want the auto win button. It's honestly ridiculous that it is in the game. Again, like, you can't be saying, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh is so skill-based, there never comes luck, never comes up, and it's like, bro, you can open a god card and it's over. So for that reason, you're playing this. Like, why wouldn't you play auto win? tokens. Then we're playing 3 Droll. This is really insane against Fluonderies, but also against Drytron. I think Drytron is currently very, very underrated. We have the NA WCQ basically happening this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Drytron doing very, very well. That deck is really scary. It also plays through a Sidelock, so it doesn't really care about Brave Punk that much. I wouldn't be surprised if the best players who play the Punk deck actually even main deck this, because of how sick this is against Drytron, as well as against some of the other Punk decks. Like, if your opponent is playing the Sangan variant of this deck instead of Carboneden, by the way, Droll ruins everything. Like, they activate a Brave card, you get Drolled, and now your Sangan doesn't go off. Your Xiamin can't add your Foxy Tune and so forth. So if you're not playing Carboneden, like, you're literally asking to auto-lose to Droll as well. So Droll, very, very impactful. If I had to play just one hand trap and cut a Kaiju, I would play Droll, even though Ash is obviously better, like, in general. Then we have 1 Draco back. I basically put in the second against decks that are Mystic Mining you, because you do want to kind of discard this for stuff. Like, you know, some really good hands allow you to keep it even at 1 in your hand rather than getting the free discard, but in less than stellar hands, or when you open Magician Souls, of course you do want that draw. So being able to play 2 then, so that you can then surge the other one on the crackback in order to out a mine, is really good. So for that reason, the second one. 1 Token Collector. This is just to send off Shooting Riser against Sword Soul, but I'm not running 3 of them, even though I think Sword Soul is relatively scary, for the reason that really good Sword Soul players can actually play around this. And so since I was going to be playing this on the EU Championship, I assumed I would be playing so many good players that the card would underperform. So I would play 1 just to send, but I wouldn't play it, you know, at 3, because the best players would literally play around. Then finally, we have 1 Red Reboot, because this is an auto win against certain decks, and it also plays around Anti-Spell, Blackout, and so forth. So being able to play against some of these like bullshit auto win cards with Red Reboot is really solid. And then 3 Twin Twisters, really good against certain matchups, but also really impactful against Sword Soul, because Sword Soul sometimes dares to play like really weird floodgates as well. And again, like, if everyone's playing Anti-Spell, you kind of need this. So that's another really annoying thing. Like, you're forced into playing these bullshit outs just because people are playing these bullshit floodgates. So that's the deck. Hope you found it interesting. If you're interested in some really sick mats, go to zerodamagegaming.com and use the code SOLEMN for a discount. There's also the Sprite mat up right now. Absolutely beautiful. Go check that out. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao.